Okay, we are live.
Nice.
Welcome, welcome. So we're going to excuse Christina with a K and Rachel. Rachel's sick, and Christina, this is a rescheduled broadcast time, so she may not be able to make it tonight, and that's okay. We communicated via email. So this case study described the dilemma of a marketing manager, Thomas Green, who, after being rapidly promoted to a new position, he was harshly criticized by his boss. Green and his boss disagree on work styles and marketing projections. Green believes the sales goals set by his boss are based on creative accounting and grossly overstated the current market environment. A mood of silent conflict develops quickly between Green and his boss, and Green is concerned that his boss is building a case to fire him. Green's situation is one in which his failure to adapt his work style and fully understand the demands and boundaries of his new position may lead to his discharge. Okay, so this is on a side note. I'm already going off on a tangent. When I got into work today, I opened my email, and the first thing in my email was the director who I worked very closely with. She said, "Oh, by the way, last night I fired the supervisor of the library, and this is how things are going to happen. We're going to move someone from this other library here, and this other one will go there." And it was like a complete shock, and it all happened after I left work last night. And,
oh my goodness!
And they said we aren't going to discuss anything about this, and that was the end of it. So I was like, "What? You've got to be kidding me!" So, it kind of makes me think of this because when you don't, and I had no idea anything was going wrong. Like, I really liked this guy. He was a great supervisor. I was shocked. So I think that in this case study, you know, they're both frustrated. There's a lack of communication, and then things are escalating. So it was interesting. Okay, so here's the question. The question is, what do you see as the key issues in the case? And then I'm going to go on to the next question too, so you can think about either question. If you were Shannon McDonald, so she's the VP, I think, of something, would you have hired Thomas Green in the first place? So what do you think the key issues are in this case right now?
One of the things that I noticed is that it seems like somewhere along the way, Thomas Green did not. I feel like Thomas Green has a lot of issues all by his itty bitty lonesome. Like, he's a big old mess. But I feel like with this story that I'm reading, if I'm reading between the lines, he didn't get a clear expectation of what Frank Davis actually wanted him to be doing.
I agree 1000%. Excellent. Okay. Let's ask this question to Brenda. Brenda, if you were Shannon McDonald, would you have hired Thomas Green?
Well, they didn't really say a whole lot about it other than she met him at some company meeting or something, or she had heard about him. So I don't know how much research she did on him. So, I don't know that I would have hired him because he jumped to a much higher position than where he was prior. Mm-hmm. So I don't know that I would have hired him for that position. I think I would have. No, I wouldn't have. So that's my answer. No, I wouldn't have hired him for that position. I would have promoted him to the next step quickly to kind of help him learn easement and things that way. But I don't think I would have hired him for that position that she did.
Okay. I don't know. I may or may not have. When I jump back to this work thing that happened at my work. So Christina, welcome. Christina with a K. That's what we're going to call you.
Sorry, I fell asleep and I'm it's kind of lame, but yeah, I'm here.
No, it's okay. We actually just started. We're good.
Good.
So back to my whole work thing. The supervisor at my work, Christina with a K, was just fired last night, and
Oh, no.
It was just interesting because I was there when he was hired. The boss, the person who ends up firing him, he was awesome. You know, he has a master's degree. He just seemed like such a promising person, and there weren't any red flags when we hired him. He just seemed like this overly qualified, perfect match, and then little things crept up, and he got fired. So we just started talking about this. We were talking about McDonald's, who was the vice president of something, but Shannon McDonald, and we were talking about if we were her, would we have hired him in the first place? And Brenda says probably not, but you never know. So he got hired. Let me go to the next question.
Funny, right? Yes. So I feel like we don't get a lot of information as to how Thomas Green was a rising star. And I feel like certainly hindsight, he did not have the necessary skills to just be thrown into management. He probably needed more guidance. But as somebody who didn't work for 8 years and then started in a company at the base part-time teller that suddenly skipped up like 7 levels, 4 or 5 levels, and got put in accounting in the back office over like a quarter of the company applying for the position, I feel like there are people you can take a chance on. And if she thought she knew him well enough, then I can see why. But when you take a chance on a person like that, you have to be willing to put the work into it. And it doesn't sound like anybody put the work into it for that kind of skip.
Yeah. Yeah. He had some good qualities. It said that he had lots of revenue generating ideas that he wanted to do. He was really good at selling himself,
Yeah.
but not providing data to back it up. It said the response time, let's see, lacking, I can't read my handwriting. I'm skipping that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I think he was really good on the custodies and getting, but management is a totally different ballgame.
Yeah.
And I don't know if he had the skills or the experience to jump. Was it 1 level or 2 levels? I don't even know how many levels to jump to the position that he was hired with skills, experience in those skills or whatnot. I mean, yeah, he was great at, coming up with ideas and selling them, but how is he with managing people and that, I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, the next question, let's see if Christina with a K can do this one. Christina with a K, describe Frank Davis. What does Frank Davis value? And what do you think his end goal is? What do you think he's after?
What's the name again?
So Frank Davis is Thomas Green's boss. So he's the guy that's has all these expectations on and set the numbers. And he said, well, I think that you should sell this amount. It should increase this amount. And so he sets the goals, and he's Thomas Green's boss. So what do you think? But he was also frustrated that Thomas got hired because I think he had some ideas of who he wanted to hire.
Right.
So what do you think he values, or what do you think his goal is?
He's probably an E-type personality who likes to see things done. It says that doesn't he have like over 15 years of experience? I don't remember exactly. I think he has an MBA, and it's probably, I felt like he probably let them hire whoever they wanted to, but had his doubts because he is in his mid-40s and probably seen that before. kind of thing, and he cares about revenue and stuff like that, kind of like most of the execs on that level.
Yeah.
So
he's probably so qualified himself that he has high expectations for whoever fills that position that he was in. But
right.
yeah, very good.
Well, and I have to
Okay.
wonder if he didn't feel like his toes got stepped on a little bit, and because of that, he did not put as much effort into this new subordinate of his as he could have.
Could be.
That's super speculation, though.
No, it could be, because it happens, especially when when he probably told them, hey, you probably don't hire the guy, but they still went and hired him, and then he probably just watched him fail.
Yeah.
So it could have happened. That's a good point.
Yeah. I mean, maybe he's not petty, but I could see how you would just possibly not try and get him to fail, but at the same time, oh, well, if you think you can do it, then go ahead and go for it, and just
right.
Show us why you got hired, and not be like, okay, come into my office, let me go over my ideas and plans with you so that you can see your role in them.
Right. But things like that happen all the time. People oversell themselves, and they cannot step up their game, if that makes sense.
I agree with that too.
Yeah, I oversell myself in interviews. I want the job.
Right.
Okay.
Well, and I think that you can't. Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say, I think you can oversell yourself if you're willing to be humble enough to know that you have a learning curve, and you one of the things I noticed about Thomas Green is that he just blew off all the feedback he got. He got all this feedback as to what they wanted out of him, and he was like, well, I like doing it this way, and he went and did it his way. And so I feel like if you're given a chance like that, that you need to be listening to the people around you. You can't just ignore them.
True.
Yes,
it kind of felt like a power struggle between the two of them.
Yeah. But I mean, it's silly because there's not a real, one of you is going to win. There's a clear boss in it. So I thought it was fascinating that he was not giving his boss the respect that he was due as his superior.
Well, and it's another thing. It's the hiring decision, right? When you are interviewing someone to hire them, you have to be able to figure out in that hour or two that you're putting them through the interview, do they have good work ethics? Are they gonna just do their things like this dude, right? Are they gonna be coachable and those kind of things? It's really hard, especially when it comes to mid-manager levels and things like that.
So what do you think Thomas Green's goal is?
I don't know.
What's his goal with the position that he has?
It's hard to say. I don't know.
I think he's innovative. I think he's coming up with, because he was thinking, oh, I'll come up with some new software that'll make them even happier, where they can make more money. And he has some good ideas on how he could probably make the company money in the long term.
Right, but is he innovative or is he cocky? You can be innovative and still kind of be subordinate, if that makes sense. This guy seemed to be very, very insubordinate. And I apologize for interrupting. Sorry.
No, that's perfect. Yeah, that's true.
I don't think he's much of a team player.
Yeah.
He wants to do it his way, and his boss wants it his way, and neither one of them are willing to budge. They're both, I kind of felt like they were both kind of arrogant and wanting it their way and not being willing to flex even a little bit to teach or learn how the other one intended to do it or expected it to be done. It just seemed like, I don't know, they were both pretty stubborn and wanted to make their point.
Yeah.
Well, and another thing, when you're new, you probably don't, while it's nice to get a new perspective, but you still have to kind of fill the waters and see what works in the certain company and the certain team, right? And this guy didn't seem to have done that.
Yeah, and sometimes I feel like as a general rule, you have to learn the rules to learn how you can change the rules.
Exactly.
I don't think you can just come in and start breaking all the rules and assume that everybody's going to be fine with it. I think you have to come in and learn the process. And then if you see that you can improve the process, once you've learned it, then you can start saying, oh, well, I see this and I think it can be done like this differently. And people are like, oh, okay. But if you just come in and start changing things, they're like, well, you haven't even tried to see the value of my way.
Right. Agreed.
So there's something that we may not get to, so I'm going to read it right now because it's my favorite part. It tells you like the rest of the story. So yeah, so it tells you what actually happens, which I think is kind of cool. It says, and it's not good. No. But it'll give us a different perspective. Okay, the rest of the story. After McDonald's February 5th, 2008 email, so remember McDonald's is sending an email and Green takes offense to it. Anyway, Green took the offensive against his boss. He crafted a series of memorandums, emails, reports, and projections that exposed inaccuracies and creative forecasting. This data enabled Green to build some alliances with other marketing personnel who used the data to ultimately side with him. On April 4th, it was announced that Frank Davis was being moved laterally to an undefined special project. However, Green's tactics were seen as overly brutal by many in the company, and although he won the battle against his boss, his career was I can't read English. Wow. It was harmed. McDonald's distanced herself from him. By July of 2008, Green announced he was resigning from his position to pursue full-time studies for an MBA. We can only speculate what would have happened if Green had tried to help Davis work out the discrepancies and problems with forecasts. Perhaps both would have succeeded. So that was kind of interesting, huh? All right, there's a part in here, it talks about different conflict styles. One thing I learned about looking at this is maybe this would have helped me before I wrote my paper. Like, maybe we should look at the person who's giving the group discussion or overseeing it, read this sort of thing, and then it'll help us in writing our paper if we have time to do that. I really think that some of the things in here, I was like, oh, I could have gotten a better score if I just, pre-read this. But I didn't. Okay, so it says there are 4 different conflict styles. And so I want you to try and think about these conflict styles and think about if you see these in either Green or McDonald or Frank, whatever Frank's name is.
Davis.
Frank Davis. So one is a competitive conflict style, an aggressive competitive one. One is a compromise one, where each party gives something up to gain something. One is an avoidance one, where they're avoiding something. And one is a collaboration one, where they work to find a common resolution. So let's talk about McDonald. McDonald, the vice president, is she competitive? Is she one to compromise? Is she one to avoid problems, or is she one of collaboration?
I felt like to some extent she avoided the problem.
I think at the rest of the story, she ends up avoiding him completely.
Yeah, like at no point does anybody say to him, your behavior is totally inappropriate. Either of them.
Mm-hmm. Okay, what about Frank Davis, his boss? Is he a competitive?
Competitive, yeah.
Competitive.
Yeah, I think competitive is probably the best one too.
Oh.
He wants it his way or the highway. All right, and what about Green? Is he
Thomas
competitive,
Green?
compromise?
I think he's a combination of competitive and avoiding, because he avoided Frank Davis when he knew that there was a problem. He avoided him.
Yeah.
And just went on and did his own thing. But I think he was slightly competitive too. Obviously, in the what happened at the end, he was very competitive because he went after his own boss.
Right.
So,
in a way, he was almost aggressive with how he went after him. Yeah.
I agree.
Does anyone know what seven habit we're supposed to be on this week? Because I'm way ahead and I don't really know.
It's the win-win.
Win-win, yeah.
Win-win. Oh, perfect. That's
Yeah.
a good paper too. So let's talk about win-win. Okay, so what could he do to repair his relationship with Davis? What could Green do to be a win-win?
humility.
Yeah, right.
Okay, good one.
Yeah, I feel like humility, and just to take that like a little bit deeper, even if he didn't necessarily want to be humble, he could have at least gone in and been like, okay, I feel like there's a disjoint in the way we do things. How can we fix it? Because I mean, you could even view that as take charge. If you're a super stubborn guy, you can take charge by saying, hey, look, here's this problem. We are not seeing eye to eye. What can we do to come together and meet in the middle?
Yeah.
Yeah, and be mature about it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you have to be willing. Sorry, you have to be willing to hear what the other person says too.
Right.
And take that in. And I think that takes, sometimes it's a healthy dose of humility, because you can go in and say, how are we going to fix this? But if you're going to bulldoze the whole conversation and not listen, then that's not being productive. And that's not really trying to work it out. That's you just posturing and showing that you're the one in charge. So I think that you definitely have to have some humility in order to put your own wants and wishes and thoughts aside and listen, and then be willing to bend and flex to come to a compromise.
Yeah,
I agree.
very true.
So I'm going to go on a tangent again. Brenda, you're in the Young Women's, right?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I was in the Young Women's for a little bit, and then I moved, and I'm not in it. So do you this is really off track. Do you get a lot of drama in Young Women's?
Not in beehives where I am. They're happy to be there. They're excited. They love it. And I don't have much drama where I'm at. Are you talking with the girls or the leaders?
The leaders. There was tons of drama. So I guess you can relate this to work sometimes, because, these guys, they had differences of opinion and different viewpoints and different ways they wanted things done, Green versus Frank Davis. And I see it sometimes in callings where, different leaders have different opinions. And so we can apply this. My point is, let's tie it back to this. We can apply what we learn in this to our work life, our callings, our lots of experiences. Okay, so the last section in here talks about what gospel connections are pertinent. Are there any connections between this case and this? And that's funny that now I'm reading that, and we were just talking about a gospel calling. Are there any connections between this case and this week's reading assignment? If so, we already talked about that. Okay, so what gospel connections are pertinent? That can we tie this into?
I feel like we've touched on one a couple of times, that there needed to be some humility.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, especially like, I know for me and my personality, I'm more of kind of a bulldoze personality. I've learned to temper that quite a bit in my older age. But I know that a lot of times, like when I'm praying for something or needing guidance or anything that way, like with my Heavenly Father, I'm more of a, I want it now. I don't want to wait. I need you to tell me what to do. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And I think that I have to remember to be humble and wait and be willing to listen, and whatever the answer is, or whatever, you know, whatever it is, whether I want to hear it or not, I have to be willing to take it in and deal with it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it does.
So
I think for me, sometimes I have to remind myself that what I do, I'm not saving lives, right? I'm not working at in AR, and nobody's going to die if something doesn't happen right now. So that's my biggest thing, like being mature about and realistic about what impact it's going to be, and not stressing out my team about little things.
All right. Very good, ladies. Are there any final comments? We're gonna end this meeting early because we've pretty much gone through all the bullet points here.
I think that I've said all that I can think of.
All right. Well, who was it that was bringing Oreos? Is that our sick friend Rachel?
Yeah, she's doing better.
Oreos. Yes, yes, Oreos. Very good.
mint Oreos.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so we're gonna end the broadcast, and then we'll have a closing prayer. Let me stop the broadcast first.